So this video is going to revisit and expand upon some topics that I have been addressing for a number of years now. And I just revisited some of the videos I've done back in the day. And my perspective is pretty much the same as it was back then. Some things have been calmed down in reference to going into the depths of, how we should be in reference to consciousness and some more of the new age kind of fluff that was there. That's just where I was in my process of escaping the mainstream weight that was out there. And I jumped into this space of pretty much how I explain in current videos, this new age weight. So you're weighed down by fear in the mainstream, in the old programs. And in order to escape that, what tends to happen is people jump into the new age communities or something similar to that. And instead of fear, taking on the weight of fear and jumping into the system, being smart with science and all that other stuff, you jump into the new age and weigh yourself down with perspectives like love. So at the time when I was talking about CERN and the Mandela effect and coming into the information about the not heliocentric universe, I was just getting out of that space of having myself weighed down with the new age weights of love and consciousness and the fluff that's involved with that. And that pretty much goes to the core of what I want to get into with this video, which is going to address like spookism, fear, and specifically jumping off of the last two videos, the standardization of the future programming. So the first video was a standardization of evolution, revolution, consciousness, love, and humanity. The second video goes into the standardization of the mind, the thought, how we think, how we perceive ourselves and each other within this reality, the machine and the product of that machine. So the machine of thought and the product becomes humanity. The product becomes how we see revolution, how we see evolution from monkeys and so on and so forth, how we see what we should be doing that's better than what we have been doing, how we see consciousness, how we see all these things that are placed out in front of us by a lot of these controlled oppositions and these uncontrolled oppositions. In this future programming, which is what I want to get into with this one, is that one thing we tend to miss out on, because it's hard to see because a lot of these teachers and speakers and YouTube channels are a part of our process, and that process becomes part of who we are. And if you dive so much into the process and haven't done that inner work, it's hard to see the line between who and what you are and what you've been studying or what you've been revealing as part of this illusion. And in extreme cases, the diving into that information, the constantly being enveloped with listening to teachers, listening to gurus, constantly rehashing everything that you've already unveiled, that becomes your thought. It becomes your reality. In that extreme case, which is what I've been saying in a lot of previous videos, is an intention to keep people in that bubble, because that has the same effect on the people or the masses as the mainstream media. Look at how many people are enveloped in the stories of the mainstream media. Well, now look at how many people are enveloped in the stories of the truther community, in the stories of the new age community, in the stories of the progressive community, and every other little story within those bigger stories, those bigger communities, micro stories. It becomes the individual, because the individual hasn't found out who they are. They haven't anchored themselves in something deeper than the surface layer attractor stories, because this information is just supposed to attract you to your own inner realization. And once you get on that track of realizing something deeper than the stories that are a part of the illusion, then it really becomes about letting go of the stories, letting go of the illusions, letting go of all this stuff that it's extra. But the system knows that control, whether it's positive or negative weight, weight is weight. It doesn't matter. It could be the negative information weight from fear and the mainstream media, or the so-called positive information weight of the New Age community. It doesn't matter to the system. What's happening is people are externalizing their internal strengths and distracting themselves with the story instead of empowering themselves with the realization. And YouTube is the perfect platform for this. Social media is just a more commercialized version of it. It's a shrunk down version of what YouTube does. YouTube has more of like the movies to get consumed with, while Instagram has the trailers, the little blips, the little memes, the little TikToks and all that stuff. That consumes your time in little minutes, while YouTube consumes your time with hours. And in reference specifically to the future programming within all of these communities, one of the main systems that are out there is CERN. And CERN jumps in between the truther community and the mainstream community. And I've been busting this out for years now, but it seems like some people specifically in the truther community are really giving this system, this program, too much credit. Like I said back in previous videos, CERN was invented in the same time frame, like within a year of NASA. And how I explained it before is that CERN is basically the backup program for when the NASA program fails. So it's plan B. When plan A starts to tank, when people start to realize that we're not in a heliocentric universe, then they can start to expand your perspectives. The mainstream thought frame can expand your perspectives, evolve your perspective universe into dimensions. Because they sold you a false and illusory dimension with the heliocentric dimension and the spherical planets hurling through space, hurling through infinity, and there's other universes that are doing the same thing. They sold you all of these illusions. And just like they have in Hollywood and the news, they have a fall guy. They're going to have a bad guy and then they're going to have a good guy. It's not as simple as checkers. It's going to be chess. If they're going to put something out there to fail, which they knew, NASA, the cartoons, this cheap imagery that they put out there, if they can make money off something that's cheap, then they will. They knew people were dumb enough to fall for these storylines because they have the minds of children. So if they can do that, if they can sell you something that only costs $1 to make, and they're going to make billions of dollars off that $1, they will. Because all they have to say is, well, oops, it was those guys who did it, and we trusted those guys, so shame on you, bad guys. But we're the good guys. We're the ones who talk about real science, the real perspective of the universe. And that perspective is what I've been saying they're trying to sell, which is simulation theory, backed by the so-called real science of CERN. And for people who don't know, the CERN program, I haven't gone into it in a while, but very briefly, the CERN program is, I think they call it this Large Hadron Collider. And China has one too, by the way. I'll get into that in a second. But it's supposed to be this particle collider that is something like 17 miles long. It's in a circle. It's backed by all these countries around the world. And supposedly what it does is shoots these protons, I think, at opposite directions around this 17-mile so-called Hadron Collider and crashes them into each other. And what they're saying is that when they do that, the product of that collision is a mini Big Bang, which we all know is an illusion. So the CERN program is out there to reinforce the original illusion of the Big Bang, but not only to do that, to add it to the story of how the simulation was created, which sets the platform for the next mind control program, which is simulation theory and the simulation reality. So the way the system gets its power is by telling you the answers, giving you the answers. And since you don't know what's going on anyway, if they're answers to illusions, if they're hypotheses, if they're theories that are pawned off as answers, then you're just going to fall for it. because you don't have your own answers. This is why separating you from your ancestors is such a big deal. Separating you from the perspectives that they had was such a big deal. And this is why I'm surprised that so-called truthers in the truther community are still pushing this CERN mind control program as if it's not a mind control program, as if it wasn't funded by the same people who fund NASA. And if you know that this system makes its money, it banks on illusion, it banks on lying to the masses of people. If they've been lying about the universe through NASA, what makes you think they're not going to be lying and producing these delusions of grandeur with the CERN program? How can the people who have lost all credibility with the NASA program and the heliocentric universe have any credibility with the CERN program? At one point I didn't understand it, and then I realized that specifically in the truther community, a lot of these people need the CERN program because they need something to talk about. They need a bad guy. They need a complex bad guy, because really, flat Earth isn't that complex. So the heliocentrism, the NASA, they're not really a complex bad guy. They're not really a viable villain. So you have to have a more complex villain if you want to appear like a more complex truther. And the CERN program is that complex villain. The New Age community does this in different ways. They do it with the good aliens and the bad aliens. They do it with the people or the beings who control on the negative shit that's going on within this realm, and the angels. And it really is just that black and white. It's just, that's how it is. And as long as you're on the good guy team, that's all. It's really that simple. But that's not the case. I just had a commenter say on just the last video I uploaded that, just like all the other comments that people say, oh, you're still in the Matrix. Break free of the Matrix. You're the one selling division. And how many times have we seen that shit in the comment section? People talking about you're promoting the demonic Matrix, as if they've so-called broken free from the Matrix, just like New Agers have become enlightened or awakened and so on and so forth. It's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as angels and demons. There are some fucked up angels and there are some good demons. Look at just the complexity differences between humans. Is it really as simple as good and bad? No, there's layers of people who are more complex and engaging within this reality. Demon doesn't mean bad and angel doesn't mean good. It's not that simple. You need demons to do certain things, just like you need angels to do certain things. There are things that demons can do that angels are not going to do, because that's in their world of interaction. And some of the things that certain demons do are actually beneficial to the so-called good angels out there. And some of the fucked up shit that some of these angels are doing is not necessarily for the benefit of what's perceived as the positive in the universe. It's fucking simple as that. Then you have dragon energy that's out there. And the dragon energy fits somewhere, flies somewhere in between and in and out of, spirals in and out within the angel and demonic energies. So when people are saying, this is a demonic matrix, you're promoting division. How dare you? It's that shit. You watching a cartoon and you're being driven by your emotions. And largely people who hear information, when I talk about the ancestors and it offends people, their response is to project onto me that something's wrong with me, instead of realizing that they're in their emotional body and they're triggered because they have no roots connecting them to where I'm coming from. So it makes them feel a certain way. They emotionally regurgitate and don't want to taste that vomit in their mouth, so they project onto me. And that projection is based upon the simplistic perspective that they come from, which is this good versus bad, angels and demons sort of thing, and it's not that simple. And that's the cartoon version story that's sold to the mainstream. This is the good guy, bad guy story that's sold in the mainstream. In the New Age community, it's angels and demons. In the mainstream community, it's Putin and Biden. So getting back to the topic of what I was talking about with CERN, these truthers who are making their money off of YouTube especially live streaming constantly, they have to provide something different, something complex in order to appear a certain way. So if they have to buy into illusions in order to promote that, then they will. And this is what I'm saying is happening with the CERN program. CERN is not some magical machine that's going to open up dimensions and suck people into an Illuminati universe that's going to enslave them. Get the fuck out of here with this shit. This is what I've heard from a truther, so-called truther channel no more than a couple days ago. CERN is going to open up some kind of doorway between dimensions, and people who are not knowing about what's going on, knowing the truth, are going to be sucked into some kind of Illuminati Beyonce universe, and they will be enslaved. And the other people who are aware of other shit are going to escape. Get the fuck out of here. But they need that. You can't talk about flat earth forever. You can't, talk shit about people who believe in the heliocentric universe forever. That shit gets boring. So in order to keep the show going, why not dabble in some little theories here and there? Hey, what's the harm in that? I mean, the system does it all the time. It's bullshit. That's the harm in it, because you're consuming people's time. Because if you weren't keeping people locked into this spiral of cartoons and bullshit, and in extreme cases the emotional body, then they could be venturing into deeper perspectives of something that is more closer to what's really going on, not this bullshit out there. And just like people in the mainstream community, just like a narcissist, they'll step back and say, oops, I didn't know. I was just, trying to theorize about this reality. It wasn't my fault. Meanwhile, what happened? All that time, all that energy that was being sucked into their YouTube channel and their perspectives, their live streams, all this shit. Did they get donations? Did they get money? Oh, hell yeah, they did. And all they can do, all they got to do is say, oops, I was just trying to work for the benefit of humanity. Get the fuck out of here. This is what the New Agers are doing too. A lot of these New Agers were heavy. I was one of these New Agers who was heavy into channeling and the information that comes from channeling. And it didn't take long. But once I realized that some of these, actually for the most part, all this information that comes from these channelers, supposed channelers, there's something off with it. And it also has an agenda attached to it. But specifically for certain people who were channeling, they started to feel this energy that was off. And they started to realize that, hey, this might not be something that's beneficial for me or beneficial for the rest of the world. I could be a part of some fucked up thing that's going on here. And that's exactly what I was saying on my channel. Some, if not all of the channeled information, let's give it the benefit of the doubt. If it is coming from some other dimension, some other whatever, like specifically this one channeler named Daryl Anka was channeling this stream of consciousness called Bashar. And Bashar is supposed to be this future manifestation of the current person here, Daryl Anka, 700 years in the future. And Bashar is channeling back to his past self information that would help our current reality shockwave a better reality 700 years in the future. So his job is to send positive information back to his previous self and get us in line, and everything will be okay in the future. But they're not talking about the fake ass heliocentric universe. In fact, Bashar's universe is based upon heliocentrism. They're not talking about any of the information that I speak about on this channel that is very directly related to our past, our history. They avoid this shit. And even more so, they dismiss that information. That's the most fucked up thing. If you're talking about the depths of the system of racism, white supremacy, healing yourself, healing the psychology of all this stuff, very boots on the ground type stuff that deals with us. If you're dealing with any of that, you're labeled low energy. You're labeled like something is wrong with you. And they avoid and dismiss that information and then project onto you even further that you're of low energy, even if you talk about or entertain that information or what's going on there. That was the first clue to me that something was wrong with this community, with these channelers, with the people who have these belief systems. How could you be about love and light and all this other stuff and in the same breath dismiss people who are heavily in this world of self-destructive because they've been attacked by mind control programs like the system of racism and white supremacy for generations, and it's still existing today? How can that mind control program, how can that war on us specifically be dismissed so easily? Yet in these communities, it is. So with all of this, with all these perspectives, the main angle I want to approach this reality with is that all these stories, all these entertainers, all these truthers, all these teachers, so-called gurus, all these people who are fitting this definition are designed to affect your future time. So you have, like I said, you had the past with the machine, the way you think. You have the present with the humanity, the evolution, the revolution in consciousness, how you are in this moment. And then you have the future, what is to be seen and experienced in the future. And these various communities and individuals and teachers are all a part of this. Whether they are aware of it or not, doesn't matter. Same thing with like celebrities in Hollywood. Whether they are aware of how they're being used, it doesn't matter. The effect is a reality. So before I close this out, I'll give you a good example of this complex theorizing of illusions that was spat out as a reality by one of a known truther channels connected to the flat earth. And this is the Bro Sanchez channel. I've heard on a live stream recently that his belief in reference to the CERN program, and like I said, this is another thing, just your beliefs. These are beliefs. I doubt he's going to say this is a reality, but when he's selling this information, he's really pumping it out there like, this is what's happening. This is what's going to happen. And that arrogance there is a weapon in itself. But to not get too sidetracked, look at the fear that comes from adding any kind of credibility to the CERN program in the first place. Like I've said, CERN was invented at the same time NASA was invented by the same people to have the same effect on people. What did they do with heliocentrism? What do they do with the Big Bang? They create this monkey evolution. They create these illusions of space. They create all of these NASA programs to make all this money. All of it is about illusion. All of it is about theory. And they make their money off of selling you illusions. What makes you think that CERN is going to be any different? If it's made by the same people, what makes you think that's going to be any different? It's not. It's an extension of the already illusory mind control program. So like I said, they sold you the Big Bang. They sold you monkey evolution with heliocentrism. And when that dies off, they're going to sell you CERN and sell you simulation theory and the ability to open up interdimensional doorways and allow in all these negative energies and allow you to ascend. So it's basically the so-called positive and negative of the New Age community. New Agers are going to believe into this because they need to believe that there's a positive CERN, there's a positive thing that's going to happen, there's a positive dimension. And the people who want to sell you more information to just consume your time with negative shit, they need to believe that there's a negative dimension that CERN is going to open up and suck you into. And this is what Bro Sanchez said. He said, oh, and to add on to that, this is what I missed, I forgot about. To add on to that, since you're just theorizing, you could just make up whatever the fuck you want to. So if the mainstream media is going to sell you what I just told you about CERN, compared to what I just told you about heliocentrism, well, what is a flat earther going to sell you about CERN if they need to sell you something? Well, if your flat earther is coming from a perspective that the North Pole is everything, then they're going to tell you that you can go to the North Pole and you're going to see multiple selves of you at the North Pole. And that's like this interdimensional doorway. And that validates flat Earth. But in order to sell that information and make it more complex, they have to tie in CERN. And I'm saying that doesn't need to be done. We are aware of what CERN is. We're aware of the credibility or lack thereof of these individuals who are pushing that program. Why even go into it? This is why I pulled away from CERN and the Mandela effect, because I used to connect the Mandela effect to CERN and all that other stuff. But I didn't want to even give CERN that weight, that ability, because that's the whole point with CERN. If they can tell you they're opening up dimensions, if they can tell you they're doing even a fraction of what they're doing with CERN, if it's possible that they can do that, they're putting themselves on God level status. That's the point. That's where the power comes from. They're telling you that they have the ability to break this dimension. And if you can break this dimension, then you're on the same energetic level as the creator of this dimension. And that's what this system needs to keep people enslaved, buying into the fear, buying into the belief that they are equal with the idea of God. And if you're selling CERN in any kind of way, you're selling this idea that the science community, the institution, the standardized institution, the university system is on par, is equal with the energies of God, and at the least, the energies that are equal to the God of this realm. And that's what this system needs people to be believing in order to follow whatever it is. Because once you have people, this is why I said it's so dangerous for even truthers to even entertain this shit. Because, like I said, if you are the standard, then your every word is just going to be followed. So if the mainstream media or the university system was to come out and say, well, this is what it really is, even people in the truther community are going to follow that in droves. They're going to follow them because they are the standard. They have the authority of intellect and reality. And they're going to follow them over some little truther, especially if they take that truther information and make it their own. So if they take this truther information that people are talking about CERN and make it and corroborate it to some degree and make it their own, you're going to have hella people even in the truther community jump over to the mainstream and follow whatever they're talking about. And you helped them do it because you added that credibility with fluffing their ego and fluffing that information about what they're doing with CERN. And CERN is just a big ass paperweight. Just like the heliocentric universe is an intellectual paperweight. It's meant to do more harm than any good. This is why I'm so shocked that people are giving any credibility to this shit. Especially what I said, even look at the superpowers of the world. China has their own CERN that's supposed to be way bigger and better. It's like CERN on crack, mega CERN. And then you're going to have mega CERN versus European CERN. It'd be like Godzilla versus King Kong. This is what I've been saying in previous videos. I'll link a couple of them in the description. But like I said, this is all to sell you an illusion to buy into. And they're all tied in. Simulation theory is the story they want to sell you. This is not to say that seeing this place as a simulation has no validity. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the way it's sold and packaged by the system is not by chance. It's not just a mistake that's happening. It's on purpose. CERN is connected to the Mandela effect, or at least the commercialization of the Mandela effect, for a purpose. The same way CERN is connected to simulation theory for a purpose. You think they would just make a movie about the Mandela effect and not use it in this mainstream mind control program? You think they would promote CERN as hard as they do and connect all these people like will.i.am, a Black Eyes P member? You think they would just connect these people in Hollywood to all this shit and not use it? Of course they are. be totally fucking naive to just buy into what it is as if it's a reality and not see how it's used as a control measure. So they're giving themselves this power equal to the idea of God, elevating science through your belief in CERN opening up dimensions and creating the Big Bang. If they can create the Big Bang with a machine, then they are basically God. And science, the science that made that machine, is the hand of God. And since so-called flat earthers have nothing else to talk about anymore, flat earth has lost its steam in a sense. They have to theorize about something else that's more attractive and still out there in the mainstream science community talking circles. So they have to validate these illusions. And yes, I am calling Bro Sanchez out on that shit. Not like it's a big deal, like, hey, meet me in the ring. No, fuck that. I don't play that little game shit. He's just an example of all the other people who do the same thing. Like I said, I've been calling out this CERN shit for years now. It's not anything that's new. This is a revisiting of some information and perspectives that I've already hashed out and shared years ago. So I don't need to go there. I've already put my position out there. And the whole point with this, like I said, is that with the mainstream media, with the science community, truthers are doing the same thing. Theories can be sold because theories can constantly be changed. They can constantly be theorized about. You can adjust them. You can adjust them to what other theories are. If somebody puts this theory out, oh, this makes my theory look like about this. So this theory is connected to that theory. That activates this theory. And they can do that forever. And that communicating, that style of adjusting your perspective, when you have an audience connected to what you're saying, then you can make money off of that. So there's no money in just speaking straight up truth, because truth is absolute. It's just not, it's only going to go so far. How many times can you just say the truth over and over and over again? No. Once people get it, they'll get it. But theories, on the other hand, are interesting. It's just like watching a movie. You need that mystery. You need that little bit of fear. You need that little bit of theater. That theater that's, oh, hey, that's interesting. I never thought about that. That's what makes money. That perspective. I never thought about that. And you can come up with some I never thought about that shit. And until the end, you can say you can come up with all kinds of shit. Look at what they're doing with the mainstream media and all the I never thought about that kind of storylines that they sell from the Big Bang. All these planets, a diamond planet, a planet made only of weed, of cannabis, of this infinite universe where they can go over here. The aliens, look at all the different aliens that are out there. I mean, forever and ever and ever and ever. You need a forever money pit. And this system, truthers who jump on the back of this system, who sell theories from pulling out of that money pit, are just capitalizing on that theoretical bullshit, the same way the mainstream media capitalizes on it. And like I said, what I'm sharing the perspectives on this channel is to make people aware of not to be consumed with the mainstream media diving into that pit and the truthers who are jumping on the backs of the mainstream media who dives into that pit. Because like I said, they're consuming your time when you do that. And the consuming of that time is just as destructive as the assholes who created the illusions in the first place. And beyond that, those theories that they're selling you are being sold to you as fact. And even if you're addressing their theories with any little crumbs of validity, you're helping them sell those theories as fact. Because they're going to look back and say, oh, well, Bro Sanchez talked about this, so it must be real. Joe Rogan talked about this, so it must be real. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with this video. You have the how and the what with the standardization of the humanity, the consciousness, the evolution, the revolution. You have all of that. Then you have the why with the thought itself, the mind control itself. Why sell you humanity and all that other stuff? Because it consumes your time. It consumes your mind. Why sell you future programs? Because it consumes your future time. It consumes your thought projected into the future, which consumes your time. And it's not just the mainstream media that's doing this. It's people that you trust that are also doing this. People in your so-called truther progressive communities are doing this. Like I said, they don't have to be aware of it. Does this mean that they're bad people across the board? No. But some of them are very much aware that they're selling you theoretical bullshit because they know it makes them some money by consuming your time. And that's fucked up. It's the same magic that the mainstream media uses. And specifically in reference to so-called truthers who are doing this, it's the worst kind of fucked up. Because like I said, when this system tries to sell you formally, when they drop the alien agenda, they're going to have to drop the dimension perspectives. And then they're going to have to drop more fear to sell you how you're supposed to perceive that dimension perspective. And along with that fear, they're going to sell you how to get out of that fear by selling you the positive sides of programs like CERN. And when you buy into the whole storyline that has been corroborated by certain truther channels, you're going to have hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people who are going to dive deeper into a mind control program and a belief in this mind control program system, which is setting back the addressing, the holding accountable of this system years, decades, all because a lot of the times you just want to make a buck. The fuck out of here with that. And like I said in the previous video, this is why a lot of channels don't fuck with my channel anymore, because they know I'll call them on their shit. Because just like the system puts out there, they're selling you these theories as if those theories are fact. And if your goal is to create this community, create an ongoing attraction, then you need to be that confident. You need to sell that stuff. And the way that you do that is to over-complexify your perspectives and the information that you talk about. And in the more extreme cases, you need to jump on the back of the bigger system that's selling these theories. So don't fall for it. Don't fall for the bullshit. Whatever they're connecting with CERN, call CERN out for what it is. Share your perspectives in the comment section about what you think about CERN. And share also what you think it's connected to. Like there's Project Bluebeam out there that's connected to the alien agenda. It's connected to the dimension, opening these dimensions. And when all this stuff hits the fan, because right now, obviously, war and fear and all this pandemic shit is still making money. Why would they try to adjust the system if what they're doing still works? But it's not going to work forever. And the next program is definitely going to be connected with these CERN programs, the simulation theory programs. This is why they got the metaverse out there to have to be like the play school version of the real shit, prepping people's minds to buy into the next Big Bang. And they didn't need a machine to create the Big Bang of back in the day because they had the idea of God that creates the Big Bang. Science is not going to say that God made the Big Bang. But now to double down on that Big Bang, they have a machine that's going to make that Big Bang, doubling down on the illusion. And if God made the original Big Bang, then the God of science, the university system, the institution of standardization is the new God. And whoever's selling you these stories surrounding how they're selling you this new God is projecting more harm than any good.